So, you're a successful businessman, you've bought some land and you want to build some houses on it. But before you can even get started, someone says, hang on, because your field could just be one of the area's most important historical sites. There's big money at stake here, so stand by your shovels. We're in for a roller coaster ride.
We have a fort here, we have Templecorn Church there, so possibly we have
a village in between.
We're probably not looking too far away from around about 3,500 BC, give or take a week.
What do you think it is?
Well, me and Bran are of the opinion that this is Sudream.
I'm in Ballycarry in County Antrim, and this is Ulster Unearthed. Today we're in Ballycarry in County Antrim, midway between Larne and Carrickfergus. We already know it's an important historical area. It's the site of the first Presbyterian church, and we'll return to that later, because right now all eyes are on what's happening in an anonymous-looking farm field on the outskirts of the village. The first documented evidence of what this area looked like can be seen in this ancient map. A scan commissioned by the landowner Tom Topping in 2008 showed evidence of a fort in one of these fields. Dr. Emily Murray and her team have returned to the site to see what might lie beneath the rest of the land.
We know that there's a fort here, and what we want to try and find out is it an artillery fort or is it a fortified bawn, which is basically an enclosed farmyard. Some of them had 1, 2, 3, 4 sort of corner towers or turrets or bastions, and then a strong house in the interior.
Another field in question over here, tell us about that.
Then we have Templecorn Church, which is down here, which is a 17th century church. And a traditional layout for villages in the plantation period in Ulster, and even much further back in the medieval period, is that you would have the church at one end of the village or the town, and you would have the Lord's manor or house at the other end of the town, and in between then you would have the village. So we have a fort here. We have Templecorn Church there, so possibly we have
a village in between.
The other possibility is that Templecorn Church is there at the moment.
Right.
And it's post-dated. It was built, we know there was a medieval church there in the 14th century and possibly earlier. So what we could have is a boundary associated either with the medieval church or the 17th century church that could extend into that field just down there. So it's archaeologically very sensitive, so we would need to test it and see if there's features there.
So it's best foot forward as the team prepare for the muddy task ahead. And the landowner arrives to keep an eye on the proceedings as work begins to open up the first trench.
We're doing a series of test trenches, and so the idea is we will excavate all these by hand in the first instance. If we do have a village here, if we do have burials from the church or a boundary associated with the church, chances are that it could be quite superficial. So if we come in the first instance with a mechanical digger, an excavator, we might not find it, it might be too crude.
Emily's looking for 17th century artefacts, a rich period in Ulster Scots history, but the team think that the site may also hold clues from thousands of years earlier.
Arrowheads and scrapers and flint's basically the prehistoric Swiss Army knife. Anything that they needed, a cutting edge at all, or an arrowhead or whatever, they used out of flint. Now they were using flint in later periods as well, especially in the 17th century as well. They were using it for gun flints, for their arms. So hopefully, if we're really lucky, we'll get some of them. They're not as common to find in the ground for whatever reason.
And that's the beauty of archaeology. You never know what you're going to find.
We could just get a blank field, which would be a result, but a negative result. But no, so we find anything contemporary with the church, medieval church, I'd be quite happy. Anything to do with the plantation, I'd be quite happy. It'd be quite a significant find,
Within musket range of where Emily and the team are digging lie the ruins of Templecorn Church, which is remarkably well preserved and is one of the most significant buildings in our heritage. In 1613, the Reverend Edward Bryce moved here from Scotland and preached in Temple Coran Church. But the church wasn't quite the peaceful place of worship you'd expect to find today. The musket points in the church's outer walls are evidence that the early settlers must have lived in fear of attack. And their solidly built local church was the best place in which to defend themselves against their enemies. While the church was a place of worship, it was also a well-defended sanctuary. To this day, many descendants of the original plantation settlers still live in Ballycarry. With today's technology at our fingertips, we can make virtual images of this once great building.
This is a 3D laser scanner. It's just a very complex measuring device, and it actually works on a very simple process. It generates a laser from this side, which then hits this mirror, and then the laser then shoots out, hits the surface, comes back, and it's that time of flight that gives you the distance to that. The beauty of this technology is it does that 1 million times a second. I traverse my way around the building collecting a series of scans, probably 30 in total on this structure, and then in the office I will stitch these together. What this machine actually measures is it measures everything it can see from each location. So you end up with these huge data sets that you then can stitch together, and it's in the stitching of these together that you then have the complete structure in 3D.
As we leave John to get underway with his survey, let's see how the team are getting on at the site.
Brian's found something, he's excited about something, so just gonna go. It's probably flint, knowing Brian.
Are you being disparaging about
I'm
my
being
lithics?
disparaging about you, yes. Kelly, you find something exciting?
Well, we are getting flint. Doesn't tell us much about the 17th century story of the site. We're getting quite a lot of debitage.
Right.
But what we've got is our first finished implement.
Very nice.
Now, what that is, it's broken and it's a wee bit battered about by the plough on this side, but if you turn it over, you see along this edge the way it's retouched.
Oh yeah.
What that is what we call a backed knife. It's a handheld knife, and what they do is they retouch one side of it so it doesn't cut them when they're.
This side here?
Yeah, so that'll be the part of it that faces into the palm of the hand. It would have been retouched like that all the way down the back of it. So you're looking probably early to middle Neolithic. So
Very
you're
good.
looking 2,800 to about 3,500.
Very nice, very
BC.
nice.
The very first scan of the site shows us where the fort once stood. We can tell precisely its size, shape, and where the two defence bastions were positioned. But what other secrets lie hidden beneath the soil?
We're in this field here, and this is the field that Mr. Topping surveyed initially, the whole field, which identified the fort in the first instance. So we've come back and done a geophysical survey just over the northern end of the field to try and pick up possible features in that within the fort at a higher resolution. So the results of it, we've picked up the fort, but what we found, which we didn't find, or what the initial survey didn't find, was another ditch parallel to the fort. So that's why we've opened this trench here, so that we can hopefully pick it up. And yes, we have picked up. It looked like the ditch could potentially be a lot wider, and my first thing was, oh my goodness, you know, we've got to finish by Friday, we're never going to get this. You know, that's like quite a major feature to excavate just within a couple of days. It's not as wide as I initially thought, but there's still quite a lot of excavation to be done within this feature. So I'd certainly, by Friday, I would like to be able to get the full profile of this and hopefully get some finds and how it's fully reported and that sort of thing. And then similarly in those other two trenches to see what features are turning up there.
It doesn't take long before the team uncover their first mystery. It's solid, stone-built and definitely man-made.
Right, an update?
Right. Do you see here, clean this point, you've got all your bedrock here, right?
Yeah.
See the way it goes so sharply down? Is
Yes.
it possible that's been cut?
Yes, it's highly possible, yep.
Could Emily and Stuart have stumbled on something that means bad news for the landowner, Mr. Topping? Coming up.
It's a very skilled craftsman that was able to produce exquisite finds like this.
Right,
It's very narrow.
What is it? What is it? Emily, are you ready to see Ballycarry?
Yep.
Okay, Ballycarry. See you after the break. Welcome back to Ballycarry. Here's what we've unearthed so far.
What that is what we call a backed knife. It's a handheld knife.
We're using space-age technology to digitally scan an ancient church.
The laser then shoots out, hits the surface, comes back, and it does that 1 million times a second.
Meanwhile, our landowner still doesn't know if he'll be allowed to build on the land. Time is tight, so a bit of mechanical muscle is needed to speed up the search for artefacts.
We have found a few finds and a few nice ones. This I've got here is a little musket ball. It probably dates around about 17th century, so it probably dates around about the time of the plantation settlement down in Ballycarry, or even the fort here itself. The interesting thing about this little example is that it's not perfectly round, it's flattened on one side. There is a theory has been put across that this is damage done whenever the soldier would have loaded it into the musket. You would have used a ramrod just to pack it all down before they fired it out. There hasn't been that much sort of 17th century artefacts found. We were expecting a lot more, probably of the like clay pipes, smoking pipes, a lot more of their pottery. What we have found, which is quite interesting, is quite a lot of prehistoric material. We have found just the one sherd of prehistoric pottery, which is probably Neolithic in date. Probably dates around about between 4000 BC and around about 2500 BC. And we are getting an awful lot of their flint. One of the star finds that we found in this site, I think, is this little fragment here. And that is a fragment of an arrowhead. And it's bifacially, what we call bifacially worked. So it is pressure flaked on both sides of the piece. That would have been done probably with a bit of antler or a bit of bone, maybe. Now, it's a very skilled craftsman that was able to produce exquisite finds like this. Judging the rest of the flint work that we've gathered from this excavation, I would say it's probably Neolithic and probably early Neolithic. So you're probably not looking too far away from around about 3500 BC, give or take a week. You know, archaeologists try to be exact, but you know, we can only do our best. So that's nice. Now these will all go back to the office and they'll be cleaned and they'll all be catalogued. And it's just another piece of the jigsaw.
But you don't need artefacts to remind you of the area's history. Every September, the town hosts the Broad Island Gathering.
Our high point has been about 6,000 people in a village community of about 900 families, or 900 people. So to bring 5,000 or 6,000 people in on one day to a community like this is phenomenal. This is a very small County Antrim community. It's a bit off the beaten track because it's away from the main routes. So for a community like this to have visitors from all over the world come, it creates an enormous community pride, and we're delighted that you know, that has happened over the years. We're as close to Scotland as we are to Belfast here. We can see Scotland so clearly on a good day that we can see cars going up and down the roads on that side, near Port Patrick and so forth. And the Solway Firth is just across from this area. So it makes it very real to us. But when I stand here, I can look over there and think, well, you know, the first settlers that came here, they probably stood and looked across and said that's where we've come from. So to me, that is a direct connection with them.
So, while the scan of Templecoren Church is being processed, I decide to research more into its history and discover among the early clergymen a creative and inventive preacher whose work is still celebrated today. This poor minister was so driven to distraction at a lack of congregation, he'd even skim stones to attract a crowd to preach to. And to get his inspiration, it said that one day he went to Belfast, looked up at Cave Hill, and it was there that he got the idea to write Gulliver's Travels. And what the Reverend Jonathan Swift saw then is still visible today. Emily, it's the last day of the dig. How's it been going for you?
Very good. We've had a really good time. I think the weather helped. We had loads of sunshine, so that was really, really good.
Great.
We've excavated both here in the fort field and down below in the field where we thought there was a possible village, possible stuff associated with the church.
Yeah.
We haven't found either. So disappointing in one way, but it's a result. You know, it's a negative result. So I think we can conclusively say there's no village between what's in this field, the fort, and the church.
Now, all of this was sort of hinging on a developer. How do the results affect his plans?
In terms of the fort, this field will always, it'll always be scheduled.
Right.
And protected, and hopefully we'll be able to do more excavations here and make more of this field because it's quite an important site. In terms of the other fields, I don't know what restriction will be placed on it, whether he will get planning permission or not. Even if he does get planning permission, there will still be archaeological evaluation in front of that. We'll still be going back, monitoring, opening up things, trenches and stuff like that.
Would you say so far that it's been good for you?
Oh, it's been excellent, yeah. Stuart's Trench, we came down what we thought was going to be something structural, something associated with the fort.
Right.
I think we've come down on something completely different. Well, I don't think we have come down on something completely different.
Right.
It's a stone line feature. We're not sure what it is, so Stuart's been rapidly recording it this morning, so we're going to have a look at it now and hopefully it'll reveal something or tell us what it is, because I'm not sure.
What's all this? What have you found? What do you think you found?
Well, as you can see, this is where I'm standing is the bedrock.
Right.
I've got the bedrock just on the other side of the trench here in the section. It appears the bedrock has been cut down into, so it has. We've got these 3 capstones that are sitting on possible stones that have been built up the sides of the bedrock.
Okay, what do you think it is?
Well, me and Bran are of the opinion that this is souterrain.
A souterrain? For either food or people to be hiding in?
Yes, basically,
okay.
yes. It may not be.
It may not be.
It may not be, but I think it's a good contender to be a souterrain.
So, the boys think they could have found an underground tunnel.
Emily?
Well, we hope to find a slot trench, but it's not. It's definitely not structural. It looks like a drain. I excavated Stroh Wells in the summer and we had a big stone line drain exactly like that. It's just that it's in the wrong position to be a drain, you know. It seems a bit odd that it would be here.
It's a bit beefy as well.
Right.
You weren't at Stroh Wells.
I know, but Stroh Wells is wet.
Well, this is very exciting. I want to lift that stone up, but I'm going to leave you 2 strong boys to do it. Get in there and get going.
All right.
Will you?
Yeah.
Go on then.
Do you want to get that other side there?
Yeah, I go around here.
You go around that other side. You'll have to move your big size 13.
Are you putting any money on it, guys? No?
No. If it's too heavy, just put it to one side.
I've got.
Watch your back, Brian. Watch your back.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
And look, it's one of ours.
Right,
it's very narrow.
What is it? What is it? Well, listen, you'd be very small if you were crawling down there.
I think you may be right.
Really? Well, basically...
It's a drain. Right,
That's
okay.
I've got it.
Why?
I just thought it was going to be something class.
Well, you can't win them all. Let's leave the team to their digging.
Earlier in the programme, our expert John Maneely digitally scanned every inch of Temple Coran Church. Now, for the first time, we get to see it like never before. Here we are above the church. Thanks to John's incredible technology, we can see every minute detail. Millions of interwoven scans allow us to see a millimetre perfect copy of the building in 3D. The dig team have had a chance to wash off the mud, and I'm on my way to take a close look at what they've found.
Emily, I've been waiting for absolute weeks to get my hands on these wonderful artefacts. Tell me a bit about what we've got.
Well, the main finds that we got at Ballycarry were flint.
Yeah.
So not necessarily what we were looking for in terms of contemporary with the fort. We think most of these are...
Though.
Yes, I mean, thousands of year old. 4,000, 3,000 BC, so about 5,000 years old from present. Yep. So this big lump here is nodule of flint. And if you can see all along the sides, it's sort of got, you know, facets. And basically what would have happened is flakes would have been flaked off or chipped off a lump like this.
Right.
And then from that, they would have been worked. The flakes would then have been worked. So, for example, this is again one of the finds from Ballycarry. So this is a scraper. This is a convex scraper. So you can see it's kind of nibbled all along the edge here to give a sharp edge.
Yeah.
And it would have been used probably for, say, leather.
Right.
Preparing leather.
Scraping an animal skin or something like that.
Yes, you can imagine taking the hairs off
Yes.
or taking the soft tissue off the inside. So you'd have scraped it along the skin like that. This one is a concave scraper, or what we call a hollow scraper.
Yeah, it's quite translucent as well, isn't it?
Yeah, flint is often quite translucent.
And there's loads of little jagged edges. Is that intentional?
Yes, it's like, well, I always think it's a bit like teeth. Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So this, again, it's very sharp. If you put your finger on like that, it's very, very sharp.
Oh, wow.
So again, that would have been a scraper, but obviously it's got a totally different shape. And then, this is probably the nicest find. So this is
an arrowhead, is it?
Yes.
Wow, look at that.
Tip of an arrowhead.
That's beautiful. It's an incredible amount of intricate work on that, isn't there? These are absolutely beautiful finds, aren't they? What were these people like? My understanding is the Neolithic were sort of early farmers.
Yes, the Neolithic is the New Stone Age, and it's the introduction of farming into Ireland and across Europe. So you get the introduction of cattle and sheep. These weren't animals that were native to Ireland. And then arable farming, so cereals and grain and stuff as well.
So, some very impressive artefacts. But what about the fort we went looking for? It's time for me to meet up with Emily again to see her reaction to our vision of the Ballycarry fort.
Emily, are you ready to see Ballycarry?
Yep.
Okay.
Wow.
Pretty good, isn't it? Impressive.
Banks are really steep, I guess. Well, it probably looked like that one was built first, you know, but I imagine it might have
Eroded a bit.
Eroded, yeah, that's quite a pronounced angle. But I mean, we haven't had any evidence that it was lived in for a particularly long time, so maybe it always looked like that, and then when it went out of use, they sort of demolished it. And,
it's a serious fortification, isn't it, for a house, as would have been?
All these banks were built to combat artillery, you know, cannons and all of that, so it was the depth of the bank that was really important rather than, you know, the height.
Yeah.
And we know, well, there was certainly these spear-shaped bastions.
Yeah.
We don't know whether they would have been, they could well have looked like that, you know, compact in the inside, built up rather than sort of wall. It would have been earthen and stone, so I mean, that's fairly realistic. I mean, the houses are quite basic, you know, I don't know whether, if they were high status, if they had a bawn, it might have been a more substantial house. We know some of Raven's drawing shows 2-storied houses and stuff like that, but there would have been more simple structures and buildings like that too, so. It's
really impressive, though, to be able to recreate the fairly typical idea of what it was by CGI, isn't it?
Oh yeah, the banks, they're brilliant, yeah.
So that's it from Ballycarry, a tiny village with a big historical importance. And all this evidence can be found right beneath our feet. Until next time, goodbye from Ulster Unearthed.